In a world where everyone is loud, desperate to be heard, constantly proving their worth, the real strength belongs to the one who knows how to walk away quietly. There comes a moment when you finally understand that peace isn't found outside, it's protected inside. And the more you grow, the more you realize not everyone deserves access to your mind, your heart, or your energy. You stop explaining yourself because you understand explanations don't change people. You stop forcing relationships because forcing destroys your spirit. Walking away silently becomes a sacred act of self-respect. You choose peace over noise, clarity over chaos, and direction over distraction. And the moment you master the art of leaving quietly without anger, without drama, is the moment your life begins to rise. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is power. 1. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. There comes a point in your life where you must understand something very important. Not everyone you meet is meant to stay close to you. Some people enter your life for a moment, some for a lesson, and only a very small number truly deserve a permanent place in your heart. Many people around you do not match your energy, your intentions, or the direction you want your life to go. Some drain your energy without ever raising their voice. A single conversation with them can make you feel tired, confused, or emotionally restless. Their presence alone pulls you into negativity, into drama, into situations that disturb your peace and distract you from the person you are trying to become. Other people demand attention, validation, or emotional labor from you without ever giving anything meaningful back. They expect you to carry their problems, fix their mistakes, or lift their moods, even though they never show up when you need support. You find yourself giving more than you receive, trying harder than they ever will, and holding on to relationships that no longer nourish your soul. This imbalance slowly drains your confidence and steals your joy. Buddhism teaches that the root of suffering is attachment, especially attachment to the people who no longer align with your inner peace. You suffer when you hold on to people who have already shown you that they cannot grow with you, who cannot understand your journey, who do not respect your boundaries, or who simply refuse to evolve. Keeping such people close out of habit, fear, guilt, or emotional attachment only creates more pain. You start shrinking yourself to keep the peace, lowering your standards to maintain connection, and abandoning your own needs so no one feels uncomfortable. But the truth is, you are the one paying the price. When you stay around people who disturb your mind, your heart starts to feel heavy in ways you can't even explain. Your thoughts become chaotic, your purpose becomes unclear, and your spiritual path becomes crowded with emotional noise. You lose the ability to hear your own intuition because you're too busy trying to manage the vibrations of others. Your peace gets buried under expectations, judgments, and responsibilities that were never yours to carry. You forget who you were before the noise took over. This is why walking away silently becomes a spiritual necessity. Leaving quietly doesn't make you cold, cruel, or ungrateful. It means you are finally choosing your well-being over chaos. It means you are recognizing your own worth. It means you are accepting that some people are not meant to stand beside you in the next chapter of your life. You don't have to announce your departure, argue, explain, or justify anything. Your silence is enough. It shows maturity. It shows clarity. It shows strength. Walking away silently is not disrespect. It is the highest form of self-respect. You are not abandoning them. You are finally returning to yourself. You are reclaiming your energy, your time, your space, your peace, and your future. And when you choose yourself without guilt, you begin to realize something powerful, that the journey becomes much lighter once you stop carrying people who were never meant to come with you. 2. Silence protects your energy better than any argument. There will always be people who misunderstand you, provoke you, judge you, or try to pull you into emotional chaos. Some do it intentionally because they want a reaction. Others do it unconsciously because they are trapped in their own pain and negativity. But one of the greatest truths Buddhism teaches is this: you do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional energy, and not every conflict is worth your peace. When you argue with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you lose more than the argument. You lose your serenity, your clarity, and your inner balance. You walk away feeling drained, irritated, and disconnected from the person you want to be. The moment you try to explain yourself to someone who has already decided not to listen, you step out of your center and into their chaos, and their chaos quickly becomes yours. This is why silence becomes your greatest shield. Silence is not emptiness, it is a conscious choice. It is the decision to protect your peace instead of proving your point. When you choose silence over reaction, you stop feeding the problem with your energy. You remove yourself from the emotional battlefield, and you refuse to let someone else dictate your inner state. Silence is a form of mastery. It shows that you are strong enough to control what happens inside you, even when you cannot control what is happening around you. Buddhist wisdom says that a peaceful mind does not need to defend itself. When you remain silent, you refuse to let your ego take over. You no longer feel the need to win because you realize that real victory is keeping your inner world untouched. You stop trying to change someone's mind because you understand that people only hear from the level of awareness they are currently at. If their mind is loud, your voice will never be enough. Silence also gives you time to observe. When you stop reacting, you begin to see things clearly. You notice who triggers your anger, who disturbs your thoughts, who drains your spirit, and who brings peace to your heart. With silence, you create a space between action and reaction, a sacred pause where wisdom grows. Instead of speaking impulsively, you respond mindfully, or you do not respond at all. That is true power. And maybe the most important part: silence protects your self-respect. When you walk away from unnecessary conflict without raising your voice, you send a message not to them, but to yourself that your peace is more valuable than their opinion. You show yourself that you are worthy of calmness, that you deserve emotional freedom, and that you no longer allow others to dictate how you feel. Silence is you choosing yourself. There is a freedom that comes when you realize you don't need to explain yourself to anyone. You don't need to justify your decisions. You don't need to prove your worth. When you stop responding to negativity, you stop giving people the power to disturb your inner world. You become untouchable not because you fight back, but because you no longer fight at all. Silence is strength. Silence is peace. Silence is protection. And the moment you learn to remain silent instead of reacting, your life begins to shift in ways you never imagined. 3. You outgrow people. When you outgrow your old self. One of the most painful truths you will ever face is this: you do not lose people, you simply outgrow them. As you evolve, the world around you changes not because the world shifted, but because you shifted. When your thinking grows deeper, your habits become healthier, and your vision becomes clearer, you naturally separate from those who are still living inside the mindset you once had. Growth is not just about becoming better. It is about leaving behind what no longer aligns with your new direction. At some point, you begin to notice that the conversations you once enjoyed now feel empty. The environments you used to tolerate now feel draining. The people you once connected with now feel distant, not because they did anything wrong, but because your soul moved to a different frequency. Buddhism teaches that every person walks their own path according to their level of awareness. Some grow quickly, some grow slowly, and some stop growing altogether. When your spiritual path accelerates, the gap between you and those who remain stuck naturally widens. The mistake many people make is trying to drag others with them into the next chapter. You try to inspire them, educate them, or motivate them to rise with you. You try to keep old friendships alive out of loyalty, emotion, or fear of being alone. You try to maintain relationships that you've already spiritually outgrown. But the more you cling to what no longer resonates, the heavier your soul becomes. The more you try to stay the person they remember, the more you betray the person you are becoming. Outgrowing people does not mean you are better than them. It simply means your level of awareness has shifted. What once felt normal now feels chaotic. What once felt fun now feels meaningless. What once felt comfortable now feels like a cage. Your old self was compatible with certain people because you shared similar wounds, patterns, distractions, or habits. But once you start healing, once you start reflecting, once you start elevating your mind, your heart quietly separates from anything that no longer fits the new version of you. This is where silent walking away becomes important. You don't need to announce your growth. You don't need to tell people they are the reason you're moving on. You don't need to explain your transformation to anyone. When a snake grows, it sheds its skin in silence. When a tree grows, it doesn't ask permission from the soil. Similarly, when you grow, you leave behind layers of your life without noise, without guilt, and without needing approval. There will be people who feel threatened by your growth. They may accuse you of changing, becoming distant, or acting different. But what they fail to understand is that you are not changing to impress anyone. You are changing because your soul demands it. You are changing because staying the same would cost you too much peace, too much purpose, too much potential. Growth requires sacrifice, and sometimes the sacrifice is the people who choose comfort over evolution. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent. Nothing in life remains the same, not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your environment, and not your relationships. Accepting this truth allows you to let go with compassion rather than resentment. You can love people from afar. You can appreciate the role they played in your past without forcing them into your future. You can remember the memories without recreating the same mistakes. As you outgrow people, you begin to see your path more clearly. Your mind becomes lighter, your heart becomes calmer, and your energy becomes protected. You finally start surrounding yourself with people who match your vision, your growth, and your peace. People who speak the same language of evolution, people who encourage you instead of draining you, people who align with your soul instead of pulling you back into your old self. Outgrowing people is not a failure. It is a sign that your spirit is moving forward. And the moment you accept that not everyone is meant to evolve with you, your life becomes peaceful, focused, and beautifully aligned with the person you are meant to become. 4. Peace comes from detaching before you are forced to. One of the most painful lessons in life is realizing that the signs were always there. You just weren't ready to accept them. Long before someone hurts you, your spirit whispers warnings. Long before a relationship breaks, the energy begins to shift. Long before a friendship collapses, the distance starts growing. But most people ignore these early signals because they are attached. They hope things will magically improve, that people will suddenly change, or that loyalty alone will save a relationship that is slowly drowning. This is how unnecessary suffering begins. Buddhism teaches that true wisdom is recognizing the moment when something has already served its purpose. Not every person you meet is meant to walk with you forever, and not every connection is meant to last. Some people enter your life only to teach you a lesson, to awaken something inside you, or to help you see your own worth. Once their purpose is fulfilled, the universe quietly begins to pull you away from them. The problem is that your heart often refuses to let go, even when everything inside you is telling you that it's time. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It is seeing things as they are, without the fog of emotion or the weight of expectation. When you detach early, before harsh words are said, before trust is broken, before your heart is damaged, you protect yourself from unnecessary emotional wounds. You honor your peace instead of sacrificing it for people who do not value your presence. You choose yourself before life forces you to learn the lesson through pain. Most people only walk away after they have been betrayed, drained, disrespected, or broken. They wait until the hurt becomes unbearable, until their spirit is exhausted, until their mental health collapses. But the truth is, the signs of misalignment appear long before the explosion. You feel it in the subtle tension, in the shifting tone, in the lack of effort, in the emotional distance, in the way conversations begin to feel forced, in how you start questioning your worth because of someone else's behavior. These are not small things. These are warnings from the universe telling you that something is no longer right. When you detach early, you protect your future self. You prevent the emotional scars that take months or years to heal. You preserve your self-respect before someone else's actions shatter it. You avoid the trap of holding on to something that has already left you spiritually. You give yourself the freedom to grow without waiting for an explosion to push you out. And most importantly, you break the cycle of repeating the same painful lessons. Silent detachment teaches you to exit with dignity. You do not need a dramatic goodbye. You do not need to accuse, blame, or point fingers. You do not need to wait for the final argument. You leave gracefully, quietly, and consciously because you understand that clinging to something that is falling apart only increases your suffering. Walking away before things get ugly shows maturity. It shows that you value your inner peace more than temporary emotion. It shows that you are becoming the kind of person who listens to intuition rather than chaos. Buddhism reminds us that peace is not found in holding on. It is found in letting go. The moment you release what is not meant for you, your heart becomes lighter. Your mind becomes clearer. Your spirit becomes calm. You begin to feel a kind of freedom that cannot be described in words. It is the freedom of no longer fighting for something that drains you. It is the freedom of no longer trying to fix something that is not yours to fix. It is the freedom of finally choosing yourself. And when you detach before you are forced to, you send a powerful message to the universe that you are ready for better. You are ready for people who honor you, who respect you, who nourish your soul instead of damaging it. You are ready for relationships built on understanding, peace, and alignment. You are ready for a life where your heart is not constantly in survival mode. You do not need to wait for pain to make the decision for you. You can choose peace now. You can detach gracefully. You can walk away silently before the storm even arrives. That is the highest form of self-love. 5. Silent departures create the loudest transformations. There is a certain kind of growth that does not need applause, validation, or an audience. It does not need attention, loud announcements, or social approval. This kind of growth happens quietly when you walk away in silence, when you choose distance over drama, when you choose healing over noise, when you choose yourself over anything that disturbs your peace. Silent transformations are the most powerful because they happen from the inside out, long before the world ever notices the change on the outside. Most people think transformation is loud. They think it requires showing the world how strong you are, proving to others how much you've changed, or demonstrating your progress publicly. But Buddhist wisdom teaches something completely different. Real transformation is like the blooming of a lotus. It begins deep beneath the water, in the darkness, hidden from the world's eyes. Only when the journey is complete does the world see the flower. The work happens in silence. The change happens in silence. The evolution happens in silence. When you walk away silently, you remove yourself from environments that keep you small. No arguments, no explanations, no revenge. Simply walking away. When you choose silence over drama, you redirect all your energy inward. The energy you once wasted on people who didn't value you now goes into your personal growth. The time you used to spend fixing others now goes into strengthening yourself. The emotional energy you once poured into arguments now fuels your healing, your discipline, and your awakening. Silence is the soil where your new life grows. It gives you space to rebuild your habits, reorganize your mind, and reconnect with your purpose. You begin to see your life clearly without the influence of others. You start understanding what truly matters and what never did. You observe your past choices without judgment and realign your future with intention. You reconnect with your inner voice, the voice that was buried under the noise of relationships, arguments, expectations, and emotional exhaustion. Silent growth also protects you from sabotage. When people see you changing loudly, they may resist, react, or try to pull you back into your old patterns. Not everyone wants to see you evolve. Some want you predictable. Some want you accessible. Some want you available for their emotional needs. Some want you stuck where they are stuck. When your transformation is quiet, it becomes untouchable. It becomes safe. It becomes yours, protected from outside opinions, gossip, jealousy, and resistance. And here is the truth that many fail to understand. The most powerful version of you is the one they never see coming. When you grow quietly, people who underestimated you suddenly feel the shift. When you heal quietly, people who hurt you begin to feel your absence. When you evolve quietly, those who doubted you become confused by your calmness. Your silence becomes louder than any words you could have spoken. Silent departures are also humbling to those who took you for granted. You don't need to tell them you're done. You don't need to warn them you're leaving. You don't need to seek closure from people who never cared enough to offer it. Your absence becomes the closure. Your silence becomes the answer. Your lack of reaction becomes the boundary they never thought you would have. And one day, they will look around and realize something powerful. The peace they stole, the love they wasted, the effort they ignored is no longer available. But your silent transformation is not about them, it's about you. It's about becoming the kind of person who does not beg for respect, force connections, or chase validation. It's about becoming spiritually independent. It's about becoming emotionally strong. It's about becoming deeply connected to your own path and purpose. It's about proving to yourself, not to the world, that you are capable of rebuilding your entire life without noise. And when your silent growth is complete, the world will naturally notice. Not because you shouted, but because your energy changed. Not because you announced your evolution, but because your presence became stronger. Not because you sought attention, but because your peace became impossible to ignore. The results of silent work are always loud. They echo in your confidence, your calmness, your stability, and your new life. Silent departures lead to loud destinations. Quiet transformations create powerful breakthroughs. Growth done in silence becomes success that speaks for itself. You don't need to announce anything. You just need to walk away quietly and let your new life do the talking. Not responding is sometimes the best response. There will be moments in your life when silence becomes your greatest strength. Not because you are afraid to speak, but because you finally understand that not every situation deserves your voice, your energy, or your presence. In a world where everyone is quick to react, quick to defend, quick to argue, and quick to prove something, choosing not to respond becomes a powerful act of inner mastery. It shows that your peace is more important than your pride, that your emotional stability is more important than winning a moment of satisfaction, and that your mind is no longer controlled by external noise. Not responding does not mean you are weak. It does not mean you are avoiding the problem. It does not mean you are letting someone win. Instead, it means you realize that your reaction is a form of energy, and not everyone deserves access to it. When you react impulsively, you are giving someone else the power to influence your internal world. You let their words control your emotions. You let their behavior dictate your mood. You let their chaos enter your heart. But when you choose not to respond, you take that power back. You become the one in control of your inner state. Buddhism teaches that most suffering comes not from what people do, but from how we respond to what they do. Your reaction is the bridge between the outer world and your inner peace. If you let everything and everyone trigger you, your mind will always be restless. But if you learn the art of non-reaction, you shield your spirit from unnecessary storms. You begin to understand that some things do not deserve your fire. Some people do not deserve your explanations. Some conflicts do not deserve your participation. When you don't respond, you break the cycle of emotional escalation. You prevent a small issue from becoming a war. You remove your ego from the situation and allow clarity to enter. You give yourself space to breathe, think, and understand what is happening beneath the surface. This is something people often underestimate. Silence is not empty. Silence is a mental pause where wisdom grows. It gives you enough distance to see the situation clearly, without the fog of anger, fear, or pride. Not responding is also an act of emotional self-respect. You teach yourself that you no longer lower your vibration to match someone else's negativity. You refuse to argue with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You refuse to justify yourself to someone who disconnects from empathy. You refuse to chase closure from someone who lacks emotional maturity. Instead, you protect your peace by walking away with dignity and choosing silence over confrontation. There will be people who test you. They may provoke you just to see if they can still control your emotions. They may say things they don't mean. They may create drama just to pull you back into old patterns. They may try to trigger the version of you that no longer exists. When you do not respond, you show them something they never expected, that you have changed, that you have evolved, that you no longer dance to the rhythm of their chaos. Your silence becomes the proof of your transformation. And here is the truth that hits the hardest. Sometimes the answer they never expected is your silence. Sometimes the closure they wanted is your absence. Sometimes the reaction they were hoping for becomes irrelevant because you chose peace over participation. Not responding forces people to confront their own behavior. They can no longer hide behind your reactions. They have to sit with their own words, their own actions, their own consequences. But the beauty of not responding is not about them, it is about you. It is about becoming emotionally untouchable. It is about realizing that your peace is priceless. It is about understanding that you don't need to win every fight because your life is not a battlefield. Your silence is not a lack of strength. It is a sign of your evolution. It is evidence that you are learning to protect your energy, that you are learning to move with intention, and that you no longer let others drag you into a place you have already outgrown. Buddhism reminds us that the mind becomes powerful when it learns to remain still amidst chaos. When you stop responding to negativity, something incredible happens within you. Your peace deepens, your clarity sharpens, your emotional stability strengthens, and your spirit becomes calm in ways you never imagined. You begin to rise above the noise instead of drowning in it. You begin to choose calmness instead of conflict. And slowly, your entire life begins to transform. Not every action deserves a reaction. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every person deserves a response. Sometimes, the best answer is simply no answer at all. 7. Walking away quietly leads you back to yourself. There comes a moment in every person's life when they feel lost, not because they don't know what they want, but because they have spent too much time listening to everything outside of them instead of the voice within. You begin to realize that you have been shaped by people's expectations, influenced by their judgments, and pulled in many directions by their emotional needs. In the process, you drift away from yourself. Your mind becomes crowded with noise. Your heart becomes heavy with responsibilities that were never yours. Your identity becomes blurry, almost unrecognizable. And this is when the most important journey of your life begins, the journey back to yourself. Walking away quietly is the first step of that journey. It is the moment you decide that you can no longer stay in environments that suffocate your spirit. It is the moment you stop allowing people to drain your energy. It is the moment you stop sacrificing your peace just to keep others comfortable. Many people stay in painful situations not because they cannot leave, but because they fear the silence that comes after leaving. But what they don't understand is that the silence they fear is the very path that will lead them back to their true self. When you walk away silently, you create space that was previously filled with arguments, noise, expectations, emotional chaos, and constant pressure. Silence becomes a cleansing force. It sweeps away the distractions that kept you from hearing your own thoughts. It removes the emotional clutter that kept your heart tense and restless. It reveals the truth you ignored, because life was too loud for you to notice it. The silence that follows walking away is not emptiness, it is healing. Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a lake. When life is noisy and stressful, the water becomes disturbed and muddy. You cannot see clearly, you cannot understand yourself, you cannot make wise decisions. But when you walk away from what disturbs your inner world, the water begins to settle. Slowly, the lake becomes calm. And when the water is calm, you can finally see the reflection of your true self clearly. This is the power of silence. It returns you to who you were before the world tried to change you. Walking away quietly also teaches you self-trust. For too long, you may have ignored your intuition. You may have doubted your inner voice. You may have questioned your worth because of how others treated you. But when you leave a situation without explaining, without defending, without seeking validation, you are telling yourself, my peace matters, my feelings matter, my intuition is enough. This is how you rebuild trust in yourself. You stop waiting for someone else to confirm your value. You begin witnessing your own strength through your actions. And something beautiful happens when you finally choose yourself. The world around you begins to change. You start attracting peace because you have peace inside. You start attracting kindness because you treat yourself kindly. You start attracting respect because you finally respect your own boundaries. You begin to see that walking away was never about losing anyone. It was about finding the version of yourself that you abandoned along the way. Walking away quietly also teaches you emotional independence. You no longer need closure from someone who never cared enough to give it. You no longer need apologies from those who refuse self-awareness. You no longer need explanations from people who misunderstand you. Your closure comes from your decision to move forward. Your healing comes from your choice to prioritize your peace. Your strength comes from knowing that you can rebuild your life without the people who broke you. And then, slowly, you begin to rediscover the little things that make your soul feel alive. You reconnect with your passions. You create new habits. You explore new paths. You think more clearly. You breathe more deeply. You feel more grounded. You finally have enough emotional space to grow, to evolve, and to design the life you truly want. The silence becomes your teacher, your healer, your guide, but most importantly, it becomes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Buddhism teaches that the greatest journey is the journey inward, and walking away quietly is the doorway to that journey. It allows you to leave behind everything that does not belong to your highest self. It allows you to step into a future that is aligned with your values. It allows you to move from noise to clarity, from confusion to understanding, from emotional chaos to deep inner peace. You do not walk away because you are weak. You walk away because you are finally strong enough to choose yourself. You do not walk away because you don't care. You walk away because you care enough about your soul to protect it. You do not walk away to punish anyone. You walk away to return to the person you were always meant to become. And when you finally do, you realize the most powerful transformation of your life happens in silence. Not when you hold on, but when you quietly let go. 8. The quiet path is where your true transformation begins. There comes a stage in your life when noise no longer impresses you. Loud people, loud drama, loud environments, loud opinions, loud expectations, they all lose their power. What once felt exciting now feels exhausting. What once entertained you now drains your spirit. And what once felt normal now feels like an obstacle to your inner growth. This is the moment when you begin to understand one of the deepest truths of spiritual life. Your transformation does not begin in chaos. It begins in quiet. Not in the presence of many people, but in the presence of your own mind. Not through external validation, but through internal clarity. Not through being seen, but through seeing yourself clearly. When you finally walk away from the noise, something profound happens inside you. At first, the silence feels uncomfortable because you have been conditioned to believe that noise means life. Noise means activity. Noise means connexion. But slowly, as the quietness wraps around you like a soft blanket, you begin to feel something you may not have felt in a very long time, your own presence. You start hearing the voice inside you that had been buried under years of distraction, opinions, drama, responsibilities, and emotional obligations. That inner voice, the one you silenced to keep others happy, slowly begins to rise again. For the first time in years, you hear yourself. And this is where your transformation truly starts. Buddhism teaches that the mind is always communicating with us, but most people cannot hear it because the volume of the world is too loud. When you walk away silently, when you choose solitude over noise, when you decide to live with intention instead of reaction, the outer world fades just enough for your inner world to become visible. You begin to understand your thoughts, your patterns, your wounds, and your desires from a new perspective. You see the root of your emotional pain. You see the relationships that drained you. You see the habits that kept you stuck. You see the illusions you held onto because you feared change. And in that awareness, transformation begins not because you forced it, but because silence finally gave you the space to understand yourself. One of the most important things silence reveals is what you have been avoiding. Most people stay busy so they don't have to face themselves. They fill their days with movement, noise, conversations, and distractions, not because they want to, but because they are afraid of what they will discover in stillness. They run from their inner wounds, their loneliness, their insecurities, their regrets, and their past. But when you walk away silently and enter the quiet path, there is no one left to hide behind. You are alone with yourself, your truth, your pain, your desires, your fears. And although this can be uncomfortable, it is also the beginning of your freedom. Only when you face yourself honestly can you begin to heal deeply. Growth in silence is not glamorous. It does not happen with applause or recognition. It happens in moments when no one is watching. It happens when you sit with your emotions instead of numbing them. It happens when you reflect on your life choices without judgment. It happens when you acknowledge your mistakes with compassion. It happens when you choose to forgive instead of hold on to resentment. It happens when you decide to break patterns that made you suffer. And it happens when you allow yourself to become someone new, even if that means leaving behind everything familiar. The quiet path teaches you something precious. You do not need to be loud to be powerful. You do not need to shout your growth. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. The loudest transformations are the ones done in silence, the ones where no one knows how many nights you cried, how many times you doubted yourself, how many battles you fought alone, how many versions of yourself you shed quietly like old skin. The world will only see your results, but only you will know the storms you survived. Walking away silently also resets your energy. When you detach from chaos, your nervous system begins to heal. Your mind stops running in circles. Your heart stops forcing connections. Your spirit stops tolerating what drains it. Slowly, you return to a natural state of inner calm, the state you were always meant to live in but forgot, because life taught you to survive instead of thrive. In the quiet path, survival is replaced by awareness. Awareness is replaced by clarity, and clarity is replaced by purpose. You begin to redefine what peace really means to you. You start choosing people who feel safe. You start creating habits that make you feel alive. You start letting go of what threatens your mental stability. You start moving in alignment with who you are now, not who you used to be. But the most profound part of the quiet path is this. You meet the version of yourself you abandoned. The version of you that was sensitive, intuitive, creative, peaceful, and full of possibility. The version of you that got buried under responsibilities, heartbreaks, disappointments, and societal expectations. In silence, that version returns. It rises from beneath the noise like a lotus emerging from muddy water, pure, renewed, and unbroken. You begin to see that the peace you were searching for in other people was always inside you. You begin to see that the love you hoped others would give you was always something you needed to give yourself. You begin to see that the strength you admired in others was always within you, waiting to be remembered. And once you reconnect with your true self, walking away becomes easier. You no longer cling to people who drain you because your worth no longer depends on them. You no longer chase conversations that disturb your peace because silence feels richer than noise. You no longer fear being alone because your own presence feels comforting, grounding, and whole. You realize that peace was never out there. It was always buried under all the things you were holding on to. And as you release them one by one, your transformation becomes inevitable. Buddhism teaches that the highest form of freedom is inner freedom, the kind that cannot be taken away by people, circumstances, or external conditions. True freedom is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can walk away from anything that threatens your peace. It is the courage to choose solitude over chaos, clarity over confusion, and alignment over approval. It is the strength to let go before life forces you to. It is the wisdom to understand that silence is not emptiness. Silence is where truth lives. When you walk the quiet path, you stop living for the world and start living for your soul. You build a life that reflects your values instead of your fears. You surround yourself with people who nourish your heart instead of draining it. You create a future based on inner peace instead of external pressure. You rise not loudly, but deeply. You grow not aggressively, but powerfully. You change not for others, but for yourself. And the beauty of this transformation is that you do not need to announce it. Those who can feel your energy will notice it. Those who cannot will drift away. Walking away quietly is not the end of something. It is the beginning of everything. It is the doorway to your healing, your clarity, your strength, and your true life. It is the moment you stop surviving and start living. It is the moment you return home to yourself. 9. Your peace becomes unbreakable when you stop seeking it outside yourself. There is a moment in life when you suddenly understand something that changes everything. Peace was never something the world could give you, yet almost all your suffering came from expecting it to. You wanted people to understand you. You wanted relationships to stabilize you. You wanted family to support you. You wanted friends to stay loyal. You wanted situations to go your way. You wanted the world to behave according to your expectations so that you could finally feel calm inside. But the more you tried to control the outside, the more the inside fell apart. The more you relied on others for peace, the more they had the power to disturb it. And the more you begged life to be gentle with you, the more fragile your heart became when it wasn't. Buddhism teaches a timeless truth. You suffer because you seek peace where it cannot exist. You look for stillness in relationships, but relationships change. You look for stability in people, but people are unpredictable. You look for control in life, but life moves with its own rhythm. You cling to outcomes because you believe your happiness depends on them. Yet every time things shift, you feel shaken, confused, disappointed, or betrayed. Peace built on external conditions will always collapse, because anything external can be taken away. Your deepest transformation begins when you stop expecting the world to behave perfectly so you can feel okay. When you walk away from chaos silently, when you detach from unhealthy expectations, when you stop trying to change people, and when you start observing life instead of controlling it, something extraordinary happens inside you. Your peace no longer depends on how others act. Your peace no longer depends on circumstances. Your peace no longer depends on approval, attention, or validation. Your peace begins to come from a place the world cannot touch, your own inner awareness. At first, this shift feels unusual because you were raised to believe that peace comes from fixing things, fixing people, fixing situations, or fixing life. So when you step back, when you stop reacting, when you stop defending yourself, when you stop begging others to treat you right, you may feel powerless. But gradually you realize that this is the beginning of true power, the kind of power no one can take away from you. The power that comes from within. When you stop chasing peace in the outside world, you begin discovering the peace that has been waiting inside you all along. This inner peace is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't explode like happiness. It doesn't demand anything. It rises slowly, like dawn breaking through a long night. It begins as a soft whisper. You are safe. You are enough. You are whole. Your mind becomes less reactive. Your emotions become less turbulent. And your heart becomes less dependent on external stability. This is the stage where walking away quietly becomes sacred. Every time you choose silence over confrontation, you strengthen the walls of your inner sanctuary. Every time you choose distance instead of drama, you deepen your connection with yourself. Every time you stop explaining yourself to people who cannot understand you, you reclaim a part of your soul that you lost by trying to fit into places you didn't belong. And every time you detach from expectations, you free yourself from the emotional prison you didn't even know you were trapped in. The more you practice this, the more unshakable you become. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to observe instead of absorb. You begin to accept instead of resist. People's behavior stops surprising you. Situations stop controlling you. Emotions stop drowning you. Even when life becomes chaotic, you remain centered. Even when people disappoint you, you remain calm. Even when things don't go your way, you remain grounded. Peace becomes your default, not because your life is perfect, but because your mind no longer demands perfection from life. Inner peace also brings a new kind of clarity. You begin to see people as they truly are, not as your hopes painted them to be. You stop romanticizing their potential and start accepting their reality. You learn that some people are not meant to walk with you, no matter how much you care. Some environments are not meant for you, no matter how familiar they feel. Some attachments are not meant to be held, no matter how deeply you loved. This acceptance is not coldness, it is wisdom. It frees you from the emotional weight you carried for years. With inner peace, you no longer feel the urge to argue with anyone. You no longer feel the need to fight for your worth. You no longer feel the pressure to prove your goodness. The validation you once chased from others begins to come from within. Your self-worth becomes rooted in your awareness, not in their approval. You stop seeking closure from people who cannot understand their own actions. You stop seeking apologies from those who lack emotional maturity. You stop seeking answers from situations that were meant to end. You become whole within yourself, and something beautiful begins to happen. Other people's chaos no longer becomes yours. When they shout, you remain calm. When they try to provoke you, you remain steady. When they misunderstand you, you remain composed. Their storm can no longer enter your inner space. This is what unbreakable peace feels like. It is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of inner stability. Buddhism teaches that true liberation is understanding that your peace is your responsibility alone. Not your partners, not your families, not your friends, not societies, not fate's yours alone. This realization is both empowering and humbling. It shows you that you are not a victim of life. You are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are not hopeless in front of pain. Everything you need to live peacefully already exists within you. You just need to stop seeking it outside. Once you reach this level of inner maturity, walking away becomes effortless. You walk away not with anger, but with clarity, not with bitterness, but with understanding, not with fear, but with strength. You no longer cling to what hurts. You no longer chase what confuses you. You no longer fight for what your soul has already outgrown. You begin to trust that whatever leaves your life is making space for something better. And the greatest gift of inner peace is this: you learn to enjoy your own presence. Your solitude feels warm, not lonely. Your silence feels healing, not scary. Your thoughts feel friendly, not overwhelming. You begin to see yourself as a companion rather than an enemy. You begin to understand that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of every other relationship in your life. When your peace comes from within, you become untouchable in the most graceful way. Nothing outside you can disturb what you have built within. No person can shake you. No situation can break you. No loss can destroy you. You rise above the world not by escaping it, but by transforming your relationship with it. This is the final stage of walking away silently, returning to yourself so completely that outside noise becomes powerless. This is where your true life begins, the life you were always meant to live, guided not by chaos, but by inner peace. 10. Silence is where you finally become the person you were meant to be. There is a stage in your journey where you begin to understand that silence is not the absence of life. It is the beginning of your real life. For years, you may have lived according to noise. Noise from people, noise from your thoughts, noise from expectations, noise from fear, noise from the world constantly demanding, judging, rushing, and pulling you into directions that had nothing to do with your soul. You reacted to everything. You explained yourself to everyone. You allowed others to shape your identity. You tried to be who they wanted, tried to be who they liked, who they approved, who they accepted. And slowly, without noticing, you drifted further and further away from your true self. But something happens inside you the day you decide to walk away quietly. A door closes, and another one opens inside you. The silence that used to scare you becomes your refuge. The solitude that once felt heavy becomes liberating. The distance that once felt lonely becomes grounding. In silence, you finally begin to feel your own presence again. You finally meet the version of you that got lost somewhere between trying to survive and trying to please everyone around you. Buddhism teaches that the true self emerges only when the mind becomes still. When the noise fades, the fog lifts, and the illusions dissolve, you begin to see who you are without the world's influence. Silence becomes the mirror that reflects your deepest truth. It shows you what you truly value, what you truly desire, what you truly fear, and what you truly need to release. In silence, you learn more about yourself in 1 hour than you learned from people in 10 years. The beauty of silence is that it strips away everything fake. You cannot pretend in silence. You cannot distract yourself. You cannot lie to yourself. You cannot hide behind masks. You see your strengths clearly, but you also face your weaknesses. You see your potential, but you also face your wounds. You see your dreams, but you also see the fears that have been holding you back for years. This level of honesty is painful at first because it forces you to confront the parts of yourself you avoided. But slowly, you realize that this honesty is the beginning of freedom. In silence, your healing begins. You start understanding why certain relationships drained you, why certain people triggered you, why certain patterns kept repeating in your life. You begin to notice how much of your suffering came from expectations, from believing people would act a certain way, treat you a certain way, or love you a certain way. You begin to see that disappointment was not caused by others failing you, but by your attachment to the idea of who they should have been. This realization hurts, but it also liberates you, because you finally stop expecting the world to give you what you can only give yourself. Silence also teaches you emotional maturity. You begin to respond instead of react. You understand that not every thought deserves attention, not every feeling deserves action, and not every situation deserves your involvement. You learn that peace is not found by controlling your surroundings, but by controlling your mind. You learn that your emotions are visitors. They come, they stay for a while, and then they leave. You stop clinging to them. You stop fighting them. You allow them to pass like clouds moving across the sky. Slowly, silence transforms you into someone wiser, calmer, more grounded. You begin to forgive not because people deserved forgiveness, but because your heart deserved freedom. You begin to let go, not because you no longer care, but because holding on hurts more than release. You begin to love yourself not in a selfish way, but in a healing way. You create boundaries, not out of fear, but out of respect. You become comfortable with saying no, not to punish others, but to protect your peace. Silence makes you strong in ways the world cannot see. And something incredible happens as this transformation deepens. You become a different kind of person. You become less reactive, less fearful, less dependent, less insecure. You no longer rush for answers. You no longer chase people. You no longer fight for things that disturb your peace. You trust the flow of life. You trust your intuition. You trust that what is meant for you will not require you to sacrifice your soul. This trust gives you a type of peace the world cannot understand. When you embrace silence, you also begin to notice beauty in the smallest things, the way your breath feels when you inhale deeply, the softness of early morning light, the stillness of night when everyone else is asleep, the gentle wisdom in your own thoughts, the quiet joy of being present. You realize that life was never meant to be a rush. It was never meant to be noise. It was meant to be lived slowly, consciously, and with awareness. And this awareness brings you into alignment with your highest self. You become more intentional with your time, your energy, and your relationships. You stop giving pieces of yourself to people who cannot appreciate them. You stop allowing others to define you. You stop explaining your worth. Instead, you begin to choose people who nourish your soul. You begin to spend time in places that bring you peace. You begin to pursue things that bring meaning instead of validation. Everything becomes clearer, softer, and purer. As you evolve through silence, the world begins to respond differently to you. People who were once drawn to your chaos now disappear. People who are aligned with your peace begin to appear. Opportunities that once felt impossible suddenly flow toward you because your mind is no longer cluttered. Your energy becomes lighter. Your presence becomes stronger. Your decisions become wiser. You radiate calmness, and the world mirrors that calmness back to you. Walking away quietly was not the end of anything. It was the beginning of your awakening, the beginning of remembering who you were before the world told you who to be, the beginning of understanding that your peace is your responsibility and your greatest power, the beginning of realizing that the person you were searching for all along was yourself. And as you continue walking this quiet path, something even more beautiful happens. You no longer fear losing people. You no longer fear being misunderstood. You no longer fear being alone. You realize that your true home is inside you. Your true strength is inside you. Your true peace is inside you. And once you find these things, you become unbreakable, not because life becomes easier, but because you become deeper. Silence is not the absence of life. It is the birthplace of your new life. And in that silence, You finally become the person you were meant to be all along. When you look back at your life, you will realize that your greatest moments of growth did not come from loud breakthroughs, dramatic decisions, or intense confrontations. They came from quiet shifts inside you. They came from the days when you finally understood your own worth. They came from the nights when you chose silence instead of arguing. They came from moments when you walked away without announcing your departure, without proving anything, without seeking apologies, and without needing closure from anyone. This is how inner peace begins, not with noise, but with stillness. You will also notice that every person who left your life created space for someone better. Every situation that ended carved out room for a new beginning. Every painful truth you accepted brought you closer to yourself. And every step you took away from chaos led you toward a future built on clarity, stability, and spiritual alignment. At first, those silent steps felt lonely, confusing, even painful. But over time, you will realize that they were the most important steps of your journey. Buddhism teaches that peace cannot be found in the outside world, because the outside world is always changing. People change, circumstances change, feelings change, expectations change. Nothing remains permanent. The only place where true peace can live is within you. And the moment you stop seeking it outside, stop seeking it in validation, in attention, in relationships, in outcomes, that is the moment you finally begin to breathe again. That is the moment your stress softens, your mind quiets, and your soul awakens. Walking away silently is not an act of weakness. It is an act of profound inner strength. It means you have learned to stop fighting for people who are not fighting for you. It means you have learned to stop explaining your worth to those who refuse to see it. It means you have learned to detach from chaos before it destroys your peace. It means you are no longer driven by ego, fear, or insecurity, but by wisdom, awareness, and self-respect. Silence becomes your teacher. It reveals who truly cares and who only pretends. It reveals the relationships built on love and the ones built on convenience. It reveals your emotional wounds and your hidden strengths. It reveals the truth you avoided because you were too busy trying to keep everyone happy. And once silence shows you the truth, you can no longer live the same way. You begin choosing yourself not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. As you grow spiritually, you begin to understand that not everyone can travel with you. Some people belong to old versions of you. Some relationships are tied to wounds you have healed. Some environments match a pain you no longer carry. Some habits belong to a person you no longer are. And the quieter you become, the easier it is to release these attachments. You let go with grace instead of anger. You walk away with clarity instead of confusion. You move forward with peace instead of bitterness. And then, slowly, life begins to shift. You notice that your heart feels lighter. You notice that your mind feels calmer. You notice that your decisions become clearer. You notice that your energy becomes more powerful. You begin to attract people who match your new frequency. You begin to create opportunities that align with your purpose. You begin to build a life that reflects the person you were always meant to be. All of this happens because you finally gave yourself permission to walk away from what no longer belonged in your story. In the end, the quietest chapters of your life will be the ones that transform you the most. The world may not hear your silence, but your soul will. Your silence will teach you what noise never could. It will guide you toward your truth, your strength, your healing, and your wholeness. It will remind you that peace is not something you chase. It is something you create. It is something you protect. It is something you become. So walk away when your soul whispers that it's time. Let go of anything that pulls you away from your inner peace. Do not fear the silence. Embrace it, for in that silence, your new life is being built quietly, powerfully, beautifully, and one day you will look back and realize that the best decision you ever made was choosing yourself, choosing your peace, and choosing the quiet path that led you home.